Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
عليكم
عليكم
السلام
السلام
ورحمة
ورحمة
الله.
الله وبركاته سيدي.
How are we doing today?
الحمد
الحمد
لله بارك
لله
الله
رب العالمين.
فيكم.
MashaAllah. Okay, so we're once again here for our monthly Q&A. Inshallah, the topic for today is Isha prayer during the summer months in the UK or Europe in general, where it can be very late, and we'll go into the whole rulings around it, inshallah, and what can be done. But just to start off, if you could, maybe Sheikh Jamili, you could start off by just explaining what the issue is exactly in the summer months.
نعم بسم الله الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وبعد. So the issue comes with in the summer months, particularly in places within the northern and also southern hemisphere, but it's not too much of an issue because of that. But anyway, northern southern hemisphere, these issues happen once we move into the summer. The prayer times, the gap between prayer times increases, and what begins to happen is, especially for Isha prayer, those who are aware of the sign of Isha prayer according to the Shafi'i madhab is the disappearance of the red twilight. And in the Shafi'i school we have a red, yet we differentiate between a red, yellow and white. It's not as simple as that, practically speaking. There needs to be a lot of experience to understand that, but I'm not going to go into too much detail. But we say once the red twilight has disappeared, Isha enters. And other madhabs, they go in, like for example, Hanafi, as far as I'm correct me if I'm saying Shaykh Noor, but it's the white twilight is the indication of the entrance. The disappearance of the white twilight is the indication of the disappearance or the entrance of Isha prayer. So what happens at that during the summer months is this twilight, it comes to a point where it doesn't disappear anymore, and it remains until the emergence of Fajr, which causes a problem. It causes a problem from that perspective. But from another perspective, the other issue is that when it does disappear, it disappears very late. And we're talking about lateness in terms of it going to an extent, in my own experience, going to almost 1 a.m. sometimes. Okay, if not 12:50, 12:30, something like that. It gets to that point. And this is basically an issue that happens, and it extends for about a month or so, a month or a half. I'm correct, Sidi Shaykh Noor? It's about a month and a half.
Yeah,
or
the
something.
real extreme will be about a month or so, Saidi.
Yeah, it's about a month. Yeah, so this is where it becomes a problem. A problem for people, and different opinions begin to arise. People start to do different things, and it's important for people to understand what is actually allowed according to the madhabs, the schools of thought, and how much leeway is there, or how much room is there for people to be able to practice something that might alleviate them from some hardships. And firstly, is there any room for that? We need to understand that, because sometimes there may be some things that the Sharia may be very, very strict upon, and that particular form of hardship hasn't reached a level whereby it would allow the Sharia would allow it to be any dispensation to take place. But the question is whether this allows that or not. So that's the discussion we're having. Isha time entering very late, when it does enter, but it enters very, very late. We're talking in the midnight region or something like that, and whether there's room within the madhahib to allow for the for any opinion, basically. Because people practice different things, such as people praying before the time, people bringing Isha a bit earlier, praying it before. I've seen some masjids also combining between them, and so on and so forth. So that's basically the discussion, Sayyidi.
Just some housekeeping. Remember, you can join us in studio. The link is in the description and also in the live chat. Alternatively, you can put your questions in the live chat as well, but we'll give priority to those that join us in studio, inshallah. And we will take questions that are related to the topic first, and then we'll do a general Q&A at the end, inshallah. Shaykh Noorud-deen, if you could also just, because Shaykh Jamili mentioned the fact that some masjids seem to pray Isha early, and we find that seems to be the case with a lot of masjids in the UK. Could you speak to that, inshallah? And what does that actually mean for people's prayer? Would the prayer be still valid? Is it okay to just say, well, the masjid must know at the right time, or if the masjid is doing it this time, then it should be okay? Could you please speak on this?
Yeah. So firstly, as Shaykh Mohammed said, that in the Hanafi madhab, we have the concept of the white twilight disappearing for Isha to come in. That is the opinion of Imam Abu Hanifa, although different things are narrated from Imam Abu Hanifa, but that is considered to be his opinion. As for the students of Imam Abu Hanifa, they actually agree with the Shafi'i madhab, the disappearance of the red twilight. And this is absolutely a sound opinion in the madhab. Many of our leading scholars actually preferred that opinion. There is no doubt that both opinions are valid. The disappearance of white twilight, the disappearance of red twilight, both are valid. There's no doubt about that. Both are followable. But it's a matter of which one is the stronger opinion. Again, there's no doubt that when the phenomena of the white twilight disappearing no longer takes place, then no doubt you should switch to red. Because why would you switch to something else when you still have a valid opinion within the madhab? So that's important, inshallah ta'ala. And yes, as Shaykh Mohammed described, is if you look at white twilight, then for much of the UK, you'll have a period of time where there's no Isha, the natural phenomena for Isha is not taking place. Whereas if you look at red twilight, then for most of the UK, Isha will take place, or Isha will enter for most places in the UK, inshallah ta'ala. But yes, as Shaykh Mohammed raised, it will be late. Depending on where you are, maybe later still. So in Luton, in my experience, it tends not to go, if you use 13 degrees for red twilight, it tends not to go beyond about 11:50. So it's not too extreme, but yes, the further north you are, the more extreme this is going to be. Now, so yeah, we'll come to more discussion regarding that, but to answer the question itself, Saidi, is there a position that says just follow your masjid? Well, certainly not in the Hanafi madhab. We have nothing that says the fiqh ruling for this particular issue is you follow your masjid. I know this is very common nowadays, and a lot of people say, and even so-called learned people say, just close your eyes and follow your masjid. It's not a position. It's not a position for this. It's not a position for moon sighting. It's not a position for anything else. There's no such position that says just follow your masjid. So that needs to be negated immediately. It's also true, as you've mentioned, that many masajid, it's true to say the vast majority of masajid are praying Isha before it comes in spring, summertime. Not the entirety of it, but for portions of it. They do pray prior to the entry of the time, and that is obviously incredibly problematic. And as I've said numerous times in the past, be that in my classes or my more public addresses, that you can't just invent a mas'ala, a ruling. You have to go to the madhahib. As Sunni Muslims, we believe that fiqh is governed by valid madhahib. Now, you can't have a contemporary person, scholar or otherwise, invent something completely new. So I've always said to people, from the Hanafi perspective, follow red twilight when it's late, when Isha is late. It'll make things easier for you. It also means that Isha is coming in for most people, or for the entirety of the year. But I've always said to people, in seeking a rukhsa, go to the madhahib, go to the other madhabs. Don't make something up, go to the other madhabs. And that's something obviously we're going to be focusing on today. What is available in the Shafi'i madhab, potentially the Hanbali madhab as well. We'll maybe just touch upon it. But what's available in the Shafi'i madhab that can actually help with this? Why would you go to something contemporary, which doesn't seem to have a basis in the madhahib, which is what a lot of people are doing? Oh, just pray Isha an hour after Maghrib or an hour and a half after Maghrib. On what basis? If it's coming in, on what basis are you doing that? Rather go to the madhahib, see what's available.
Jazakallah khair. Apologies if anyone saw that. We just had some troll come in. Unfortunately, these things happen. We will now request that anyone that wants to join, please put your camera on first in the back studio, and we'll then let you on, inshallah. Otherwise, we won't be able to bring you on because of such people. having said that, Sheikh Jamili, you recently put out a video, trying to ease this situation where people are finding it too difficult to pray so late because maybe they have work in the morning, children, so on and so forth. So could you quickly summarize what that was? And then we did have some questions related to that. Then we'll get to those, inshallah.
Inshallah. So the first thing to highlight, just to discuss the issue about hardship, and I think I need to just spend a little bit of time explaining this point, only because some people may misunderstand this, okay? And it's very important for someone to be genuine, not for, at the end of the day, the person's going to be responsible in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not in front of me, I'm nobody, but in front of God, one is going to be responsible, and they will be obviously answerable to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it's very important that people understand what the fatwa is and act upon it accordingly, and not make things up based on what they think they understand. Okay, this is extremely important, because many of the time, especially when it comes to issues of some form of subjectivity, many times people will not follow it correctly. So the issue of Isha prayer, no madhab, as far as I understand, allows someone to combine prayers just because it's hard, and that's for what they consider or perceive to be hard. This is extremely important for someone to understand, okay? That you cannot just, because you perceive something to be hard, you can combine. Neither am I relating that, nor do any of the scholars of mine, as far as I understand, allow that to happen, okay? So firstly, let's get that clear. Just because Isha is entering late, just because of that, that does not mean someone can combine prayers, just because of the entrance of Isha being late. But what is a consequence of that is what we're talking about. The entrance of Isha, when Isha does enter, we're not talking about when Isha doesn't enter, which I may have mentioned at the beginning, so let's just not talk about that. But when Isha does enter and it enters late, a consequence of that is for some people, it can bring about some difficulty and hardship because of their jobs, livelihoods, family, health, whatever it may be. Okay, but there's something that it would fall into the category of, okay, this person is experiencing difficulty, and this difficulty is because this person has a livelihood, he has a job to get to, and if he prays Isha on time at 12:50, 12:30, he has to wake up 3 o'clock in the morning the next day, 4 o'clock in the morning next day, 5 o'clock in the morning next day, whatever it might be. And again, just because someone has to wake up at that time, that can differ from person to person, by the way. Just because I'm saying that someone has to go to sleep at 12:30 or someone has to wake up at 5, it's difficult. It might not be for some people. That they might be actually okay with that, and it's not going to cause them hardship. Maybe they're healthy or whatever it might be. Allahu alam. It might not cause that. So we're talking about it from this perspective, where a person knows that, okay, this is going to cause me some real difficulty and I cannot, or whatever it might be, and they know themselves and they're genuine about it. In this scenario, then this is where the Shafi'i school has an opinion. No, sorry, not the Shafi'i school. Some scholars of the Shafi'i school have an opinion which can alleviate things for people in that time. On top of that, there's also, which I'll explain a little bit further, is the Hanbali school also, which is better. Since there's an authoritative school of thought, it's always better to go with an authoritative, strong school of thought on this issue, which supports what we're going to be talking about. So basically, let's just get that clear. I just want to summarize that point. People must understand the issue of hardship. I am not saying that just because Isha enters late, it gives you an excuse to combine prayers. Not at all. That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is what our scholars have said is when there's a hardship, that lateness creates a hardship for you, which may affect your livelihood, it may affect your health, it may affect your living or something like that. It may affect some form of relation or whatever it is. If it creates any of this hardship, then there may be leeway for a person to combine when that hardship exists. Once it doesn't exist, then prayer times are, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned, inna salata in as-salat al-mu'minina kitaban mawquta. They are prescribed times Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala set for the believers, and we do not go beyond them unless there's a reason. So in the Shafi'i school, combine, the answer was basically to clarify that in the Shafi'i school, to combine prayers, we only have two scenarios where we can combine. Number one is travel, a long journey with conditions and parameters I'm not going to go into now. And number two, when there's rain, hail, snow, with also its own conditions. Okay, those are the two only circumstances whereby the Shafi'i school allows combining between prayers, and those prayers are either between Dhuhr and Asr and Maghrib and Isha. Okay. There's another opinion in the school, which some scholars it exists in the school, but mostly the scholars have adopted this opinion and they consider it to be strong. But it's not a position of the school. We don't just say it's an attribution of the school. It's some scholars of the Shafi'i school adopted this opinion because of the high caliber of ijtihad, and therefore they believe because of the evidence that they will give fatwa with this position, although it might not be in line with the principles of Imam Shafi'i or the school, okay, which is by due to illness, and they also have set parameters about illness. Then we have Imam al-Nawawi mentions this in multiple of books as he's got, which is Al-Majmu', Rawdat al-Talibin, and many other scholars also have related this position, which shows us that this position exists and is trustworthy. That one of the great scholars called Ibn al-Mundhir, which was a mujtahid imam in his own right, also in the Shafi'i school, as well as Abu Bakr al-Shashi, which is a great scholar of the Shafi'i madhab, and they relate also from Ibn Sirin, who is a great mujtahid as well, that it's allowed to combine prayers when there's a need. And they said haja. The term they've said was haja. There's a need even if there's no rain, no illness, and no fear. They mentioned these 3 points, okay? Because to just negate, so if in case someone believes that their opinion falls into one of those that have been mentioned in the madhab. So they say, and this is based on a hadith that is recorded in Tirmidhi and also in Sahih Muslim. The wording does differ, okay, from the narrations, but that the Prophet ﷺ combined prayers in Medina to Munawwara when there was no rain and there was no fear. Okay, and they based this hadith of Ibn Abbas radiallahu ta'ala anhuma, a sound hadith, and based on this hadith and other evidence that these scholars went by this position that one may combine prayers when there's a need. How does this relate to what I'm talking about here? Is Isha prayer for some people, okay, may create that hardship for them. It may be that the child cannot go to needs to go to sleep earlier in order to wake up. It may be some health issues. There may be some livelihood issues. A person cannot pray on time due to it may affect their livelihood and there's no alternatives for them, and so on and so forth. There's a variety of possibilities that it could be, and what I would advise someone is to discuss these one's own circumstance with a reputable scholar in the Shafi'i school or the Hanbali school, because the Hanbali school allow a person by the madhab to combine when there's a need, and they also have their parameters. So to either speak to a reputable Hanbali scholar or a Shafi'i scholar who knows this clearly and is very well versed in the madhab, to be able to discuss their circumstance to understand whether this is a need, whether basically is this genuine a reason, or is it that no? And a person generally does get the idea. They understand that you can stay up till 1 a.m. and watch Netflix, okay, or whatever it might be, but then you can still wake up at 5 a.m. the next day or 4 a.m. the next day or whatever it is and get to work. Some people can do that. So really, people need to be genuine about this. So to combine the prayers, that's allowed in the Shafi'i. Some of the scholars have allowed it when this hardship exists for a person to pray Maghrib, for instance, and immediately once they've prayed Maghrib to get up and pray Isha, okay, to do Iqama and pray Isha. The parameters I've also mentioned in the fatwa, because the type of combining is done. This is called Jam' Taqdeem, where you're bringing a prayer before its time, Isha prayer, praying it earlier. And that combining, there are conditions that need to be applied. Number one, you must pray the first of the two prayers, Maghrib. Number two, you must make intention within the first prayer, which is Maghrib, to pray Isha after as combining to take the rukhsah. You must make that intention in your heart within the first prayer before you give salam. Thirdly, once you finish the prayer, you must get up immediately. There cannot be a gap of more than a gap such that a person could pray 2 short rak'ahs. Okay, I'm going to come back to this point because this is something I want to just highlight that I've seen masajid do, and they do it incorrectly. Okay, there cannot be a gap that one can pray 2 short rak'ahs. So therefore you should basically get up immediately and do the iqamah and say Allahu Akbar and pray Isha straight away. Okay, and the reason for combining, the need must exist throughout the whole of the first prayer and then at the beginning of the second prayer. Okay, so those are conditions that are there that one must abide by. Why did I mention that issue? Because I've been to many masajid, I remember when I was younger, and also that do combine at this time, but by no madhab would their combining be permitted, because even the Hanbali school, from what I recall in Rawd al-Murbi', they mention this point of the gap between the two prayers. You can't combine if you pray 2 rak'ah sunnah, or you could pray 2 rak'ah short sunnah. And I've seen people, they pray Maghrib, they give a talk for about 5 minutes, then they pray Isha afterwards. No. That's the end of it. You can't now combine. You're going to have to wait till the Isha time. Whatever your hardship is, it is what it is. You've missed the chance and it's gone. Okay? As far as I'm aware from the Hanbali school. So these conditions must be adhered to if one wants to combine. And the need, again, one must assess it on a daily basis. This doesn't give someone permission throughout the whole of summer to combine. Not at all. Okay? And nor does the Hanbali madhab say that. Okay, doesn't give the person someone a permission to combine. We myself and Shaykh Noor, who spoke to a Hanbali scholar, Shaykh Salih al-Asmani, and again he made that very clear. He emphasized that point that the Hanbali school itself does not allow it to people to just combine just like that, and just the mere late entrance of Isha does not mean one can combine just because it's late. Okay, that hardship point must exist. The need must exist. Okay, and that obviously will be assessed on a daily basis. Okay, Wallahu a'lam, Sayyidi.
Jazakallah khair. Shaykh, on that video, we did have some questions. Before we go there, Shaykh Noorud-deen, is there anything you wanted to add, or I see you unmuted your mic?
No, I was just in case you ask me something and I forget to answer that.
No problem. Okay, so Shaykh, the first question we had, which you've kind of already addressed, but I see someone else in the chat has already asked it as well. So maybe I'll just put that one up because it's easier. They're asking, can you define a hardship to make it clear? Like, I think you kind of went through it, but maybe you could clarify even further.
I don't know if the brother or sister came late or before they could see it. But basically, as I mentioned before, a hardship is when something is going to cause some difficulty in your wealth, in your health, in your honor, in these type in your life. Okay, life meaning there's going to be some. So let's see an example. Someone being again, this will differ from person, but let's say if someone prays waits till that time, they have work the next day, which is going to be very early. I don't know. Some people might be waking up and praying, waking up at 6. They have to pray Isha. By the way, Isha and Fajr are two different things. The issue of waking up for Fajr hasn't entered, so Fajr is not really a problem. We need to understand this point. Fajr prayer hasn't entered yet. So your concern over Fajr, or you're worrying about, I'm not going to be able to pray Fajr, at that moment in time is actually not a problem. We have to understand this point because Fajr hasn't entered. I.e., if you were to die, may Allah give us husn khatimah, before Fajr entered, you would not be held accountable by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for Fajr. Okay? Therefore, in the Sharia, we can't take this into consideration at this moment in time. The point here is Isha. You have to wait. By you waiting till that time, it's going to create some difficulty in you might have a health issue. For children, it's extremely difficult. They might be going to school and they may have some problem. They can't stay awake. They have a lot of issues from that perspective. That's another point. The parent, they've got work the next day and their work starts early. It's a long day and they're worried that, if they might not be able to make it to work and therefore their pay will be docked or they can't get sick leave. and so on and so forth. So all these different things can appear and cause hardship. All right. If a person thinks that I'm going to be tired, that's not hardship. I'm not going to get enough sleep alone, that's not hardship. Okay, this is not what I'm talking about. I'm going to be a little bit tired, but it's not too bad. Or for example, one may, for example, have a long drive, and that can be quite dangerous. That could be considered as a difficulty. They have a long drive the next day, 3-4 hours, whatever it is, and therefore they need to have that rest because it can be dangerous and difficult. So that is true concern, necessity at that point, or need. Sorry, not necessity, a need. Okay, or and so on and so forth. Or if a doctor, for example, says no, if someone speaks to a doctor, this person has an issue, they need to sleep, and so on and so forth, it may cause other health problems, then one may combine. All right, but just again, I want to re-emphasize this point. Just because it's late, you're not getting enough sleep alone, it's too difficult, or it's so late, and so on and so forth. These type of things does not necessitate one, or does not allow one just on that mere purpose to pray. There must be some difficulty that's going to arise, which is going to cause a need, and that need will be something that could affect your livelihood, i.e. your wealth, your health, it might delay some treatment, it might cause some further problems to someone's health, it might be one's children, their honor, whatever it might be from that perspective. Okay, hence why I said one should always discuss their circumstance with a Shafi'i scholar, a reputable one who knows and is versed in the madhab, or a versed Hanbali scholar. Okay, and I want to re-emphasize the point: Hanbali scholar, not pseudo Hanbali scholar. Okay, Hanbali scholar, someone who follows the Hanbali school to the word, to the T. Every I is dotted and every T is crossed, okay, with the Hanbali school. Why am I emphasizing that? Because there'll be people that may claim so, but they are not following the Hanbali school protocol. They'll be following, for example, other contemporaries, which are not, for example, following the protocol of the Hanbali school, or the Shafi'i in that way. Wallahu a'lam.
Barakallah fiqh, Shaykh. Next question we had under the video, and I think maybe Shaykh Noorud-deen, you can also join in on this one. The brother asked, also, majority of the masjid in the UK pray Isha early in the time of Maghrib in the summer months. According to the Hanafi school, there's no basis for this. Would it not be better if they adopted this opinion of combining the prayers?
Yeah, absolutely, no doubt about it. I remember years ago, I spoke to Shaykh Samir, one of my teachers, Shaykh Samir al-Nas, regarding this issue. At the time I was in communication with those who were doing this kind of thing, and I was asking them that on what basis are you doing this? How can you just pray when Isha is coming in later on? How can you just pray an hour or an hour and a half after Maghrib, even though it hasn't actually entered? And the particular person, he said to me, well, all madhabs apart from the Hanafi madhab, they all permit joining prayers in particular circumstances of difficulty, hardship, etc. This we deem to be a greater hardship than traveling and even sickness and such things, that people have to wake up early and then they get barely any sleep. And for that reason, we're allowing for them to pray early. I remember, this is going back a very long time, conveying that to Shaykh Samir, and he obviously disagreed with it. Any scholar is going to disagree with that, but he said, even if they wanted to do that, and they're saying that we're going to join prayers, even if they want to do that, then there are conditions, there's criteria there. You can't just say, fine, other madahib allow it, so we'll do what we like. No, you have to follow the criteria. As Shaykh Mohammed mentioned, you pray one and then a very brief gap, if that, and then you immediately pray the other one. Where does this come from? Pray one, wait an hour, then pray the other one, and say you're combining prayers. It doesn't make any sense. So this is something that has been raised with people for a long, long time, that if you want to do something to try to make things easy, then do something which is valid from within the madhab. And what absolutely baffles me is if you do follow a position from another madhab, a position of another credible scholar, then not only will you be in a better place legally, and as a Sunni Muslim, at least you're within one of the four madhabs, but it will actually make it far easier for people who do have a genuine hardship. It'll make it, what is easier for people, that you pray Maghrib, wait an hour and a half and pray Isha before it comes in, or wait an hour and pray Isha before it comes in, or you pray Maghrib, pray Isha, and then you go get your rest, inshallah ta'ala. So yes, of course, for a Hanafi, if he has a difficulty, if he has a problem, then follow the details of what the Shafi'i scholars have mentioned or what the Hanbali madhab has mentioned. Follow those details and go ahead and take the rukhsah, inshallah ta'ala. Don't invent something new.
Barakallah feek. Final question we had on the video, and then we can move on to the questions in the live chat, inshallah. And just a reminder to everyone, please do join us in the studio. The link is in the description and in the live chat. We will give you priority, inshallah. Also, please do like, share, and if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel, inshallah. So the final question we had under the video was, normally when you're traveling, you're allowed to shorten the prayers and join them. In this case, would you pray the full 4 rakat for Isha, or would you shorten them?
Yeah, this is a common thing that sometimes happens, where people mix between combining and shortening. Shortening prayers is only on a journey. Okay, that's something that's not that's got nothing to do with this one. Although they do come together in the Shafi'i school when you're traveling, but because you end up having both, you can shorten, you can combine. Okay, but shortening prayers, bringing Isha down to, or Dhuhr, Asr and Isha down to 2 rak'ahs, is in travel. This is combining. It's 2 separate issues completely. So we're not talking about shortening the prayer, we're talking about combining, praying both Maghrib and Isha full, but praying Isha before its entry time, bringing it forward. And just to re-emphasize that point of what Shaykh Noor was just mentioning is, you, like we said, you have to follow it correctly. I have experienced many masajid praying the Isha and they've set a time, and I don't know where they've set this time from. Where did they get 10 p.m. from? Where did you get 11 p.m. from? Where did you get 9:30 p.m. from? Where do you get this time from? It's a very precise time as well, 10:15. Sah Shaykh Noor? It's a very precise time. It's not it's not 10:17, not 10:18. It's a very precise time. Where did they get this time from? Okay, so if it's a time that, okay, this is where it actually enters, then great. But if it's not, then it's not allowed. And one other point I also want to mention about this. If you begin to combine in the masjid, this doesn't mean everyone in the mosque is allowed to combine. This is also something that happens in the Shafi'i school when it comes to rain. When an imam combines in the masjid rain, if you're not affected by rain, or the effect doesn't affect you, you're not allowed to combine with the imam in the masjid because of rain. The same applies to here. Let's assume there's an imam in that masjid and that imam is going to combine. Again, there will actually be some questions raised about this, okay, him combining. But anyway, let's assume he has a valid reason to combine, and he's going to follow this opinion. He tells the people, right, I'm going to combine based on this position, and so on and so forth. Does that mean everybody else in the masjid is allowed to combine? Absolutely not. No. This does not allow everyone in the masjid to combine. Only those who will be affected, okay, that have some form of the hardship will affect them genuinely, will be allowed to combine. Okay, so please, let's not confuse between just because the reason I'm saying this, because the masajid that I've seen that combine during Isha, and this is again based on a fatwa I think that was released by the European Council of Fatwa, one of the scholars that he gave this fatwa, and people went off by it, that people can combine because of hardship, and then the masajid all start combining. I completely disagree with this fatwa, by the way, because of that. But combining, or the masajid combining because of hardship, everybody doing it, by no means have I seen any of the masajid allow any of the, so far. In the Shafi'i madhab, not at all. The other madhab I don't know in too much detail. Obviously the Hanafi is excluded because you don't allow combining anyway, Shaykhi, except in Hajj. But otherwise I haven't seen it. Otherwise, it would be good for me to see if any madhab allows this. But to emphasize the point, just if this does not give an excuse for a masjid to combine prayers, first, number one, and number two, unless they have a reason, the imam, and number two, this does not give an excuse for a person praying with the masjid to also combine with the masjid that's combining at those times. Okay, so please do not fall for this unless you have, or you are affected by this hardship, and therefore you are permitted by Allah to take this ruling. Now, sorry, Sayyidi, I just thought I'd mention that.
No, Jazakallah khair. So that's all the questions we had under the video. Now we can move on to the questions in the chat. The first one is, a brother said, I heard Ahmed Rida Khan has a fatwa which states that the position of Abu Hanifa should always be taken over the Sahiban. What's your thoughts, Shaykh?
This is not the case. The madhab is not one person. That's that's what we constantly say to people who oppose madhab and say, "Oh, you're just following this one person." The madhab is never just one person. Abu Hanifa, rahimahullah ta'ala, is the biggest authority within the Hanafi madhab, but he's not the only authority within the Hanafi madhab. And with some regularity, the madhab does go against Abu Hanifa, rahimahullah ta'ala. It is very, very rare to find a situation where Abu Hanifa's opinion, if it's soundly attributed to him, is completely rejected, but it's not always the strongest opinion. I can't comment on Ahmed Rida Khan and exactly what he said. I'm not familiar with his works, but in terms of the Hanafi madhab itself, no, this is not the case. It's not the case that you always have to take the opinion of Abu Hanifa rahimahullah ta'ala. With some regularity, that the madhab moves away and moves to the opinion of either both of the Sahibain, Imam Abu Yusuf or Imam Muhammad al-Shaybani, and in incredibly rare situations, goes against all three and goes with Imam Zufar rahimahullah ta'ala. So no, this is incorrect. I'm not going to comment on if it's soundly attributed to Ahmad Rida Khan Barelvi or not. I don't know, but as a position, it's not the case. It's incorrect.
Jazakallah khair. Next one, I'm not sure I understand fully. Maybe you can help me. I'm following Wafaqul Ulama and type in red light disappears. Shafaq Ahmad, I believe. Or can I type in Haraj?
Yeah, I'm not familiar with the website, so can't really speak to it. One thing I will say is there are many websites that you might ask for the red twilight time, and it doesn't give you the correct time. It's not based on, say, 13 degrees. Sometimes it's not based on even 12 degrees. You have to be a little bit careful. You have to use websites that you're fully aware of what's going on. I remember years ago, people were telling me that get your prayer times from the moon sighting website. Get it from there. It's really reliable, really reliable. I looked into it and I asked them with regards to Isha time in peak summer. I emailed them because it didn't make any sense. And they said, oh, yeah, we just calculate. We don't follow the actual Isha time. We just calculate it. So even though Isha was coming in, they were just estimating, calculating some kind of time. I don't know on what basis, and presenting it to the people. But people tend to go on hearsay. People don't really look into things. Somebody will say, this is a great place, this is a great website, this is a great place to get your prayer times, and then just go ahead and do it, rather than actually investigating a little bit, do some comparison as well. Why is this website saying this time? Why is this website saying, why is this app saying this time? Scratch the surface a little bit, then you'll understand the issue better. I cannot speak about that particular website, but yes, you should, when Isha is late, or certainly when the white twilight doesn't disappear, you should follow Ahmar. You should follow the opinion of the red twilight disappearing, but use a website that genuinely gives you the correct figures.
Maybe I can quickly plug in Islam Answers there. We do have a prayer times section on our website. I believe it's prayertimes.islamanswers.co.uk. We do provide 13, 15 and 18 degrees. We have a list of cities. If your city isn't there, you can request it, inshallah. Moving on, says, I live in Denmark. In a scenario where I struggle to find the 18 degrees time for Fajr, can I take the 15 to 17 degree time and pray Fajr later in the window? Maybe Shaykh Noorud-deen can comment on this.
Yeah, for Fajr, mashallah, the later you pray it, the better it is anyway. For example, even if you had 18 degrees, and 18 degrees, for example, if it says Fajr enters at 2:30 a.m. and it ends at 5 a.m., okay, it still will be far, far superior to pray towards the end time. First of all, you're away from any controversy, difference of opinion. And secondly, it's just recommended in the Hanafi madhab to pray Fajr towards its end time. So if it ends at 5 a.m., pray at 4:15, 4:30, something like that. So when it comes to Fajr, alhamdulillah, there's no big issue here. When it comes to fasting, that's where you have a real concern.
Okay, Jazakallah khair. I think just to clarify, when Shaykh Noorud-deen says want to follow the 18 degrees of Fajr, I think that's for suhoor, isn't it, Shaykh?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Next question. Does the Hanbali madhab allow combining Maghrib and Isha regularly?
Sorry, can I just clarify a point,
Sorry.
though, Sadie, regarding the previous one? I'm not saying you cannot, as soon as it comes to 18 degrees, you can't pray Fajr. Then the question, as I understood it, was speaking about, oh, can I do this? And the question is saying, can I do 15 or 17 instead of 18? And what I'm saying is, not only can you, but it's superior to do that. It's better to do that. So yes, I do say 18 degrees for Fajr, fine. It's especially important for Suhoor, be very strict. But for Fajr, fine, you can pray after after it hits 18 degrees. But the more you delay it, the better it's going to be.
Okay, back to this one. Does either of you have an idea if they can do that?
I do
No,
not.
they're not.
Saidi.
They're not.
Okay.
They're not allowed, Saidi. And the Hanbali school is not allowed.
It's
I don't
not
think
allowed.
there's any school. I don't think any school is allowed someone to just regularly combine for no reason.
Okay. Next question. Are the need for 8 hours sleep a need?
It depends on the person.
Okay.
And yeah, it depends on the person. Again, this is a health matter, okay? And it depends on the circumstance.
Yeah.
For someone who has to drive a lorry or truck for 12 hours, okay, I don't know what the law is in the UK, I forgot now, but for example, someone has to drive, okay, it might be a need. That set amount of time, I'm not sure, might be more than that. Someone who has a health issue might be an issue. So we can't generalize. But if we're talking generally, 8 hours, that's what's recommended. But is it, medically, they mention these things, doctors, etc., and health and whatever. But if someone doesn't get that, is that a massive issue? One should discuss with the doctors, a trustworthy doctor, and see if that will affect them. Because if that's the case, that will not only happen in the summer, it'll happen every other. It happens throughout the whole year. So someone needs to see that, seen to for that as well, if it's an issue.
Jazakallah khair. Next one. Most of the masjid in London at this time pray Isha before 13 degrees or even 12 degrees. Do the people who are unaware of Isha time and have been following the mosque timetable for years have to make up the prayers they prayed in Jama'at? I think, Shaykh, 13 degrees is probably okay, right?
Yeah, 13 degrees is fine, yeah. 12 is concerning. Less than 12 is very, very problematic.
So could you comment on that? Do they need to make up the prayers that they've prayed, or?
Yeah, I always say when you have an issue where, your circumstances would require making up lots and lots and lots of prayers, then it's good to speak to shuyukh, specifically speak to shuyukh of different madhahib, and see if there is some fatwa, valid, credible fatwa, that would mean that you don't have to make it up. From a Hanafi perspective, it looks like, yes, absolutely. I can't see of any rukhsa, any dispensation from the Hanafi perspective where we'd say, yeah, your prayer is fine. But before rushing to tell people to make up 10, 20, 30 years of Isha prayer, I am going to advise them, as many Hanafi scholars have advised, that, okay, fine, look elsewhere. See if there's something. See if there's anything out there would say that, hold on a minute, this may be fine. And you may not have to make qada.
Shaykh Jamili, is there anything in the Shafi'i madhab?
In the Shafi'i school, very similar. If there is something there that may help them, that would be helpful. If not, then then we have that principle in fiqh that تبين خطأه. What's the Sayyidi Shaykh Noor? What was the beginning of that? تبين خطأه. What's the thing before that? The principle. I can't remember. So if there's something, basically, that if there's a mas'ala and then you have some form of belief, but then it becomes clear later on, that it was incorrect, then khalas, you can't go by that original thing. Meaning that I believe that this is incorrect. Okay, I believe it's incorrect. I follow the madhab that we've got, but the degrees don't seem to add up to what is known for the Isha time entrance. If Isha time has entered before that time, then okay. If Isha time hasn't, then we have a problem. There's only one thing that may help these people is if they prayed. If you prayed believing that Isha has entered, you believe that Isha had entered, okay, and you prayed Isha, your salah is valid, unless you have evidence and proof to say that what you did was wrong. Okay, so if that happened, then now if we can ascertain that at that time when those people prayed that they prayed Isha before its time, okay, entered, then they would have to make up those prayers according to the Shafi'i madhab. At this moment in time, did they pray, and did they pray believing Isha had entered? Yes. So therefore, that's what they believed, and therefore their salah is valid currently. Wallahu alam, until it's clear Isha didn't. I believe that this is way too early, and therefore Isha hadn't entered. But again, I don't know where they were. I don't know where about it. So it's in London. And again, it maybe at that time they had, so they may have seen it did exit. So Allahu alam sayyidina.
Jazakallah khair. Okay, there's a quick comment that I just want to address. The brother says, if you could please provide references for your answer, that would be great. I follow the same school, Shafi'i. Shaykh Jamili has put out a video, inshallah. It's on Islam Answers YouTube. Please do refer to it. Shaykh, is there anything else you want to add?
Yeah, just if it's reference in terms of how to combine, this has all been mentioned in the books of the Shafi'i madhab.
I think it means whether you can combine or not. For hardship.
For hardship, yeah, this is meant. You can find this in many of the books of the Shafi'i madhab. If you look in Al-Majmu' of Imam al-Nawawi, he mentions it there. If you look in Rawdat al-Talibin of Imam al-Nawawi, mentions it in there. Kifayat al-Nabi mentions, some other scholars mentions in there. Across all the books, especially the more commentary type of books, you'll find this mention in there where they go into more depth. Okay, this position I've mentioned has been mentioned in there. Wallahu a'lam.
Jazakallah khair. We do have a guest. Bear with me a second. I'm just going to put overlay. Assalamu alaikum, Bravali. Bravali, nope, it's gone. Okay, no worries. Let's carry on, inshallah. So the next question we had was, isn't the 13, 17, 18 degrees completely against the rules in terms of blindly following it? I'm surprised people are speaking about it. I wonder if they've actually observed with the eyes. I'm not sure what this is referring to.
13 degrees for Isha, I've observed numerous times. For red, the disappearance of the red twilight, yes, with my own eyes and with other people present. Inshallah, we did intend last year to go out and actually film this. I'm sure there are plenty of videos out there already regarding this, but ourselves as an institution to film it as well. Inshallah, we'll get that done this summer. But yes, 13 degrees, I have observed it multiple times.
Also, we just quickly remind the people, we do have a video on Islam Answers YouTube, once again, speaking about the prayer times, Isha prayer times, explaining what, the different degrees mean, what the different positions are. So please do have a look at that, inshallah. The next question.
Just say the one thing, if on that point, about blindly following. In the Shafi'i school, I think this brother, because he says he's Shafi'i as well,
Correct.
He was referring. So he's correct in the sense of you can't just blindly follow someone else on a prayer time. Okay, as in you have to either you see it or the person who tells you bases it on eyesighting, or but then tell you and they base it on the eyesighting, and that pathway must happen. Otherwise, the final thing is it goes through ijtihad, that everyone's exercising a form of ijtihad, and therefore you trust their tools of ijtihad and you should apply it. So it can be a little bit problematic, okay, in the sense that if you're following ijtihad if you're following someone else's ijtihad, you can't do that in the Shafi'i school. You can't follow by ijtihad, meaning someone's exercised judgment not based on eyesight. Okay, but if we know that, for example, that the common thing is people based on eyesight, or astronomers will tell you, for example, based on eyesight, or they give you calculations that based on this point, and if you were to see it, you'd see it, then you can go by that and you can go follow it. Okay, so there's a little bit of detail to what the brother is asking. It's a good question. There is a lot of detail with regards to that, and I would advise this brother to read Shaykh Mohammed, if you can read Arabic, Shaykh Mohammed Sulaiman al-Kurdi's fatwa in his fatawa, who speaks in detail about this issue. He's always referenced, and you can see this in a book called Bughyat al-Mustarshidin, or his fatawa himself, where he speaks for at least 3 or 4 pages discussing this issue about prayer times and how to follow them. Wallahu a'lam.
Barakallah feek. Okay, next question. It seems like majority of masjid follow the wrong time. How can we educate the imams? There is a masjid culture here within the UK that you should not question the imam.
Yeah, the sad reality is that shouldn't be the case, but the sad reality is often imams don't budge. The organization that runs the masjid doesn't budge until the attendees don't raise questions and don't essentially, raise a fuss regarding a particular issue. So the best thing I can advise people is ask the questions, be persistent with your questions, always be respectful, inshallah ta'ala. But most masajid have multiple imams. Speak to the various imams, persist with those imams, speak to the people who run the masajid, try to explain to them, try to have them explain themselves as well, what they're doing, on what basis, etc. And you are more likely to find some movement, inshallah. Even more importantly, I feel those masajid that have moved to the correct Isha times, support them a lot, because unfortunately they are still in a tiny minority. And what tends to happen when you are a minority, even if you're doing the right thing, the majority puts a lot of pressure on, and that minority may take a step back. So be very, very careful with regards to that. Be very supportive of those masajid who have taken the step in the right direction to establish 13 degrees Isha. Support them, inshallah. And if they are supported, and then these other masajid see, well, actually, if they can manage to do it, then why can't we manage to do it? Then, inshallah, we may have a move in the right direction. But also, yes, people need to understand, just because an imam or a shaykh, whoever it is, says something, it's not automatically correct, and it needs to be questioned, it needs to be scrutinized. As Sunni Muslims, we have a tradition of scrutiny. Anything anybody says other than Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is going to be scrutinized, it's going to be questioned, it's going to be scrutinized.
Shaykh Jamili, anything you want to add? Or
No, I think Shaykh is quite clear, alhamdulillah. So,
okay, I think you've kind of already addressed this, but again, the brother saying there's much scientific data showing if people are not getting sufficient sleep, it can have severe health problems in the future, like cancer, heart disease, and dementia, etc. So can they combine?
Not just based on that, Sayyidi. Again, I understand that I know these things do exist, but again, the Sharia looks at things also practically. If I only have 6 hours sleep, which I'm 6 hours, 5 hours, 8 hours, whatever it is, and I wake up, alhamdulillah, I'm okay the next day. But that's me. Someone else might not be. Again, depends. It's on a person-to-person basis, and it will require one to speak to a Muslim, trustworthy doctor who can advise them accordingly. Just because, again, and also scientific data alone is not sufficient. Okay. The Sharia does take into consideration scientific data, but not alone. It needs to be accompanied with other things that I'm not going to go into now, inshallah.
Shukran. Okay. Next one. Should we abandon praying Isha in our local masjid if they are praying too early, or should we intend nafil behind the imam? According to Islam Answer site, Isha in my area starts at 10:33. My local masjid prays at 10:20.
Start by speaking to them. No, thank you. Start by speaking to them, inshallah ta'ala. Raise the issue, explain to other people as well. Try to. Usually, if you're just a single voice, they tend not to take you so seriously. This is why you do need to speak to other people. You need to gather people. You need to explain the issue to other people as well. You need to encourage those people to speak out. It's no good disagreeing with something taking place in your local Islamic center or masjid or any dawah organization and just remain silent. Speak to them respectfully, with proof, with evidence, and with some persistence, inshallah ta'ala, because of course you need to think about your own prayer, but it's also important to think about the community at large and safeguarding their prayer as well. So try to get people with you. This is very, very important. A single voice, unfortunately, they don't pay so much attention to it. With anything in our communities, be it even issues with non-Muslims and such things, we know when you have a greater congregation, they tend to take things more seriously, inshallah ta'ala. So my advice would be to speak to them, persistently speak to them. I'm more interested in that than should you pray nothing behind them or not. This is the real issue. This is the work you really need to be focusing on. Try to band people together, inshallah ta'ala. And if they want to speak to us at Islam Answers, bismillah, more than happy to do so. There's plenty of material we've already produced, and we'll produce more as well. I'm willing to speak to individuals. Ultimately, my advice would be, don't just silently pray nafal behind them, especially if you're somebody that, you know, at least some of the community looks to. Because they're going to think, nobody's going to know you're praying enough, and they're going to think you accept this prayer time. And if you accept it, and especially if you're a figure that at least some people look to, it's going to mislead people, it's going to misguide people. Unless you've really raised your voice and made it very, very clear that the time is wrong, and all you'll ever pray behind them when the time is wrong is nafal, and everybody's very clear about it, then khair, go ahead if you so choose to pray nafal behind them and pray Isha when the time comes in. But it is, you know, it's very, very important to raise these issues now, and especially because we have masajid now that are praying Isha at the right time. I understand it would have been far more difficult when you have no masjid in the UK that's praying Isha at the right time. Unfortunately, the ignorant comments will be thrown at you. Well, are you the only one that's right and everybody else is wrong? All of the masajid are wrong. You know, those kind of things will be thrown at you. Now you have an example. Okay, look at this masjid, they're praying at this time. Look at this masjid, they're praying at the right time. Okay, look at this, you know, this video. Look at this written answer. Look at this. Look at this. Consider this.
Jazakallah khair. I believe this had already been answered about combining.
Regularly, if there's a need. Yeah. So
this one, if there's a need.
I think we've already spoken about that. This one also, if we've been following our local mosque for fasting, who follow 15 degrees or 13 degrees for Fajr, must we make up the fast? Kind of similar to the other one.
Similar to the other one. Again, look across the madhab, inshallah ta'ala. From a Hanafi perspective, I have huge concerns with people who have been eating beyond 18 degrees now. But before telling people to make up fast for 10, 15, 20 years, or however long it will be, it's been, the reality is it probably won't be that long, because this tends to be more of an issue when we have Ramadan in the spring, summertime. But I am going to say to people, look, consider the other madhahib, see if there's a valid rukhsa, maybe you can take it, but at the very least, fix things going forward. This is one of the problems I have. This is why I rarely answer this kind of question. I just focus people's mind on doing the right thing from this point forth, because a lot of them, they become overwhelmed. They're like, okay, if I have to accept that, you know, eating until 12.5 degrees is wrong, then I'm going to have to make up all of my previous fasts. Therefore, I'll just carry on doing what I'm doing. That's a bigger concern for me. The concern is that people won't rectify it right now because they're concerned about what they have to do regarding their previous fast. Focus on the future, first of all. Focus from this point forth. You're going to do things right. And then, inshallah ta'ala, once you've established that, you can think about what to do regarding what passed and see if there's a valid rukhsa that will assist you or not.
Barakallah feek. All right, last question we have. My local masjid will be starting Fajr Salah at around 1:15 a.m. according to Nisf al-Layl calculation. Can this be explained?
Yeah,
I'm not sure I understand.
If it's right now, I don't know. Depending on where this person is, it might be a little bit premature. But what happens when Fajr stops entering? And there is a difference between Fajr and Isha. With Isha, and even in the Hanafi method, we have these two clear, strong opinions. The disappearance of the red twilight, the disappearance of the white twilight. And when the white twilight ceases to disappear, it persists throughout the night, then you switch to red. And as I said before, for most of the UK, that's fine. Then you will have an Isha time. But with Fajr, no. With Fajr, you will have a problem. what's going to happen with Fajr during the peak summer-spring period, you'll have in Luton roughly 2.5 months where the natural phenomena that is required to usher in Fajr time will not take place. For Fajr time to enter, what you require is complete darkness, and then after complete darkness, the appearance of the daybreak, the white twilight. That's what you require for Fajr to begin. So there will be a period where that's not taking place. During that period, when that natural phenomena is not taking place, first and foremost, because it's no longer going to be, it's not going to correlate with the Ramadan itself, I will advise people not to carry out qada fast during that period, because you're in a gray area. And you delay your qada fast till later, or do your qada fast earlier. You're going to have an issue when it comes to fasting. Now, it is very much a gray area. As for Fajr prayer, my advice will be what I mentioned earlier. Just delay it towards its end time. Then it's valid by agreement. You have no concern. So let's say, Nisf al-Layl is saying it's 1:15 and it ends at 4:15, delay until 3:30. Delay towards its end time, you don't have an issue. But in any case, without making it too complicated, and I will advise people to watch the previous videos where this was explained in more detail. When you have a situation where the true Fajr is not actually coming in, I will say in the Hanafi madhab, it's not absolutely clear what you do in those circumstances. It's not absolutely clear. Ibn Abidin rahimahullah ta'ala did speak about, in those situations, follow the Shafi'i approach of aqrab al-bilad. He did speak about that rahimahullah ta'ala. However, he did also mention something, although it might not be absolutely clear, that would strengthen nisf al-layl, which is wait until half of the night has passed, and then consider the second half of the night to be Fajr time and the first half to be time for Maghrib and Isha. He did say something in the Hashiyah, rahimahullah ta'ala, that would support that as well. So although when he spoke about it most directly, he spoke about following the Shafi approach of aqrab al-bilad. As for other things, 1/7 of the night, that approach, and some of the other approaches, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. I'm not quite sure where those have appeared from. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. It is a bit of a gray area. The best thing to do is wait towards its end time. But I do believe if you were to follow Nisf al-Layl, and it was followed correctly, and it was followed with caution, inshallah, it is a valid position with us.
Barakallah feekum. That's all the questions. Before we go, I just want to announce that, alhamdulillah, we will be starting a course with Shaykh Jamili on the Shafi'i fiqh. Namely, we'll be starting with the fiqh of Tahara. Is that right, Shaykh Jamili?
Naam, Sayyidi. Inshallah, we'll be going through the fiqh of Tahara, and quite a simple book. Yaqut al-Nafis is called. It's something that I started translating quite a while back, and I've put a lot of footnotes with some practical points in there. And inshallah, it'll be good. It'll be a benefit for me, in the sense that obviously I'll be learning, and secondly also to review the translation, hopefully get it published at some stage, inshallah, if I'm still alive. And obviously for people to the benefit for people to actually to learn the aspects of wudu and other aspects that may all apply. And also there'll be a lot of practical things involved in there, inshallah. And to have that awareness of the Shafi'i school when the situation arises, if they need it, to understand how to follow another school with its conditions correctly, inshallah.
And what level would this be aimed at? Is this at beginner, intermediate?
Yeah. The book is an intermediate book, but I'll be teaching it at the beginning level. So anyone, whether you've studied or not, it's a good place. So if you've studied, it's good for you to join, because there's practical aspects in there that to be aware of. And then if you've never ever studied before, it's also going to help, because you'll be able to understand how to do things quite easily. It's very simply, it's very straightforward, the text, and inshallah, if there's any explanation, it'll be mainly from my side, bi'idhnillah.
Now, if I can just add to that especially those Hanafis who are looking to take this rukhsah, this dispensation, they do have a need at times, which is obviously not far-fetched, because the night can be really, really squeezed at times. I would strongly encourage you to study, inshallah ta'ala. Then you'll be on a far more solid ground rather than, okay, right, I think the Shafi'i madhab says this. Okay, fine, I'm going to join prayers. And I'm going to try to make sure what I'm doing is valid in the Shafi'i madhab, inshallah ta'ala, but I'm not quite sure. I heard this, I heard that, but what's the detail to this? What's the detail to that? This is your opportunity. It's not going to take long, inshallah ta'ala, but this is your opportunity to set yourself on much firmer ground. You'll understand. Because from a Hanafi, I'm speaking as a Hanafi, if you're taking a rukhsah, you really should try to make that act, prayer in this case, valid according to the madhab you're taking a rukhsah from. Now, so for that reason, you're going to have these questions. Okay, what exactly does nullify wudu in the Shafi'i madhab? What exactly is fard in wudu in the Shafi'i madhab? What do I need to bear in mind regarding the prayer later on, inshallah ta'ala? That will be taught too. So it would be good to do this. It's just going to make you much, much more comfortable when you actually take this rukhsah.
Inshallah. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's going to be Saturday, 7 to 8 p.m. And it's an 8-week course, if I'm not mistaken. But inshallah, we'll put up all the details on the website and Islam Answers social media. So please do look out for that and do join the course, inshallah. Unless you both have anything else to add, we'll close the show, inshallah.
Barakallahu feekuma.
Okay, till next time. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.